Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 14 of Weighing In, and holy good golly do we have an absolutely incredible episode for you this week. Off-season is finally here and it's been even more insane than any of us could have expected. I am Josh and I'm joined by my constant co-host Ollie. How are you doing today, Ollie?
Hello, we are back for another episode of Weighing In, and although no games this week, like you said, it has been pretty crazy with the whole off-season. There's been loads of confirmed changes recently and loads of rumours and stuff, so we're hopefully going to be covering as many of those as we possibly can in today's episode, although it would be hard to cover every single one because there's just an awful lot of stuff going on right now. We're obviously going to try our best to cover all the EU and the NA ones, and then obviously we'll talk about the stuff that's happening in Korea right now, which is a whole mess. And I think we touched upon it briefly last episode.
We had begun to touch on it as it started to unfold, but things seem to be changing every day in every single region, so it really is going to be an action-packed episode today.
Indeed.
And so, to start, I'd like to just caveat everything that we say around rosters. We will only say when things have been confirmed. We are going to talk quite heavily about rumours because up to this point, none of the rumours that I know of have actually been proven to be incorrect. So I'm quite confident on lots of the rumours that we're hearing. But, you know, with the speed that things are changing, rumours can change every single day. So just keep that in mind. We're currently recording this on Thursday evening. That's 3 days after the free agency window first opened. And so just keep that in mind. We're going to talk about what we know and what is likely to happen.
Yes, indeed. So shall we begin? Which region would you like to start with?
So I think we should just go straight in with North America, as it's been one of the most interesting regions, in my opinion. And the team we've got to talk about, the team winning the off-season, in my opinion, in North America, has to be Cloud9.
Obviously, there's only been a few things confirmed with the team, but like you said, they've done really well so far. And I definitely say in NA, they have been winning the off-season so far. And one of the things that people are obviously going to look at Fudge being picked up in the top lane and Perks in the mid lane. One thing I think is really, really good for this team is the coaching change with getting Miffy and Rainover in. I think is going to completely turn this team around, honestly. And I think that's something that you can't really look over and ignore when you're going through these off-season changes.
Yeah, I definitely think it could be super interesting. We've seen Rainover's had, I think it's just 1 year under the tutelage of the previous Cloud9 coaching staff. And so it'll be super interesting to see what he's learnt during that time and what he decides to change going forward. And picking up Mithy, continuing to have West Rice on the coaching team. It seems like the coaching lineup for Cloud9 will be really strong. And it's very interesting because when you look down the list of coaches in the LCS, it's changing massively. We're almost seeing a shifting of the guard.
Yeah, exactly. And if we're going to talk about coaching staff, there's obviously one big name that I know you're probably really excited to talk about, who's just recently become coaching staff. And I can't remember, was this released before we did our last episode?
It was. We spoke about it just briefly, but yeah, Bjergsen moving to the coach for TSM, taking over that head coach role, the ill-fated head coach role at TSM over from Peter Zhang, who was previously doing it on an interim basis. And it'll be super interesting to see how he manages this team, because God knows what's going to happen with this team. I don't know if you've quite been following exactly what's been happening with TSM, but the initial reported lineup was Huni, Speaker, Power of Evil, Double Lift, and Sword Art. However, there's been a lot of reported problems with this. So essentially, Double Lift has said that he doesn't want to play with anyone who isn't a top tier support, possibly only from a foreign region. And Sword Art's having visa issues at the moment, is rumoured. So he may not be able to make it to North America. And if that's the case, Double Lift has said that he may not play. And this also has put into question the Huni transfer as well, coming over from Dignitas.
Yeah, and
so it's a very...
Yeah. So there's a bunch of issues, and one thing that I want to kind of talk about is the whole Double Lift saying that he'll only play with a top tier support. I think for me this just shows like he is kind of just throwing his toys out the pram right now, and I think that he kind of needs to assess his own gameplay before he kind of, I don't really know how to explain it. I think he has a lot of issues with his own gameplay that I feel like he's trying to not let people see by only wanting to play with the best supports in the world. And he I think needs to understand that the best supports in the world are not wanting to really play with someone like Double Lift, because he is not one of the best ADCs in the world right now.
I 100% have to agree. This is so childish, and I'm a massive TSM fan, and I'm totally okay with that. But goddamn, this makes it really hard to support this team. What kind of an attitude does a player who refuses to play with some of the best supports from his region and demands support from another region, how does that affect the team and the morale and the way they're going to start working together? Like, it seems absolutely insane to me. And like you say, it's not that he's some incredible AD carry. He's not best in the region by far. It's not like his gameplay's flawless. A lot of the mistakes that were going on in the 2020 roster for TSM were just personal mistakes on Double Lift's part. Nothing to do with him and his synergy with his support.
Yeah, exactly. And, he obviously has made those mistakes within games before. People like to hate on him, but it's kind of due. There's some point where you have to look at it at a different perspective, and you have to understand that, okay, this guy clearly is not one of the best in the world. He's not one of the best in the region by far. You know what I mean? Like you said. And when he's making these demands, saying that he might not play if he doesn't get one of the best supports from the world, let alone his own region, like, he's always really had good supports by his side. And just now throwing his toys out the pram, I think it's, like you said, super poor attitude towards the game. And I'm sure this is something that TSM have obviously talked about. And I'm pretty sure, if I was in Bjergsen's position, my head would be in my hands right now after this, like, moving to a more supportive coach role, and then this happening straight away with Double Lift and Sword Art. There's been loads of issues. I think for me, TSM is just if I was on the coaching or the managerial staff, my head would be in my hands right now.
Yeah, it is so incredibly frustrating, and it's such a difficult challenge. I can imagine for Bjergsen to face on essentially his first month in the head coaching role, having to deal with a player who's almost refusing to play, is really difficult. And let alone the fact that he has just come off the team with this guy, and they are presumably quite close. So I think the team dynamic is going to be really difficult in TSM, and I think even if this roster comes together, it's going to be quite difficult, I think, to get off to the start with a really harmonious kind of team attitude.
Yeah, I agree. And after those, obviously, the statement that Double Lift made about not wanting to play without one of the best, whoever he does end up with now is obviously going to have to either be one of the best in the world for him to play, or if he does compromise, then his support's going to know that Double Lift doesn't think highly of him, obviously. Doesn't think that they are one of the best. And, it just feels an extremely poor way to handle yourself, and it seems super unprofessional from Double Left, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And of all the the AD carries in the North American region, you would expect someone of such tenure and such fan favour to, just kind of man up at some point and do his job, because I'm sure he's being paid a lot of money to play on this TSM roster. And what can I say? I'm almost lost for words with how disappointed I am. As a TSM fan, this really hurts. It genuinely does.
Yeah.
But the other side of this TSM roster that I really want to get your opinion on is the Huni transfer, because there were lots of rumours flying around. Would Impact go to TSM? Would Licorice go to TSM? But no, it's actually reportedly Huni. And the rumours that I've heard insinuate that TSM had the option to choose between Licorice or Huni, and they actually went and chose Huni over Licorice. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think for me, Huni is a super good top laner, and I think he's definitely one of the best, going to be one of the best in this region, in my opinion. I think that pickup for them is super good. And over Licorice, I'm not 100% sure on picking him over Licorice. Obviously, Solo's now gone to FlyQuest. Licorice has gone to FlyQuest.
Yeah.
And, FlyQuest are probably going to do really, really well with Licorice, but I feel like Huni is also going to be just as outstanding as a player. And obviously Licorice had a really good season last season with... and I also think Huni, also had a great season, and hopefully on this TSM team, if everything goes to plan, I think, the synergy between Huni and Speaker, I think that could be really, really nice as well. And also with... if Power of Evil was playing in TSM, the Speaker PoE Huni topside is definitely going to be something pretty cool.
And I'm pretty confident that we are going to see Power of Evil on this lineup, as I'm not sure if you caught the episode of Hotline League on Monday night. That's Travis Gafford's podcast. Reginald actually called into that show and was talking about some of the roster rumours, and accidentally let it slip that they had signed PoE already on Monday. Which is slightly funny, and he tried to play it off as in he was talking about Path of Exile, not Power of Evil. But that to me is a pretty conclusive fact that it is going to be PoE, which I think is a great move actually. With the rivalry he's had between him and Bjergsen in the past, it would be great to see how those two really ingenious minds of the mid lane can turn around in this brand new meta and make a really, really, really good kind of like core to this team.
Yeah, I agree. I think PoE is definitely a standout mid laner, and I think he's going to do great things with TSM. Let's just hope that transfer is not now being cursed by the leak. Like we don't have a whole other T1 situation again.
To my knowledge, it's already been signed. So
that's good. That is definitely good.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing him on the team. Like I said, I think the top lane synergy is going to be really good with this team. I think PoE is definitely an underrated mid laner, in my opinion. Not underrated, but I think he's definitely got the ability to be one of the best.
I would say he's massively underrated. I think if you think historically, especially in his time in NA, he was, probably top 3 mid laner just by stats alone, and he never really got that recognition. So it'd be really good to see him hopefully flourish on this new team.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it will be great to see him come off of a team, he obviously had some choices with this transfer, and I think he's definitely gone with the right choice in TSM. And I think with this team, they'll have a really good shot at, obviously depending on who their ADC is, what support is, we'll obviously know more about that by next episode, hopefully. But I think this team with that kind of current lineup that we're seeing starting to form have a really good chance of doing well next year, going to Worlds, winning the split, doing well in the split at least, and then doing well at Worlds. So we'll definitely see what happens.
Yeah, and you led me on to my next question, which was going to be, how would you power rank this team? There are 10 teams in the LCS, going from first, the best, to 10th, the worst. If you had to make a rough pre-season power ranking position, assuming that the final lineup is going to be the rumoured one of Huni, Speaker, Power of Evil, Doublelift and Sword Art, where would you put this team?
I would have to put it. Oh, that's a tough question because obviously we've seen some amazing teams come out from this transfer window already. I would say I'd have to put them second with Liquid in first. Yeah.
Ooh. And okay, all right, that's very interesting. I would go third, but we'll discuss the two teams that will probably round out our top threes next. The team you left out of your top two was the one we started with. That's Cloud9. Their rumoured lineup is going to be Fudge, Blabber, Perks, Sven, and Vulcan. And we've kind of touched on the Perks situation, which is a humongous thing. It's great to see Fudge getting a shot. Now they've decided to move Licorice out. Admittedly, the Licorice move is probably to do with the buyout, getting a little bit of extra money to buy out Perks. But even so, I think Fudge is going to be a great top laner for this team.
Yeah, agreed. And I think it's great to see also Perks playing back in that mid lane. I think that's going to be super exciting. Also playing over on NA as opposed to he was playing ADC on EU. I think this is going to be a really, really good team. And I think Vulcan, great support. Sven, great ADC. Perks, we've seen him play great mid lane. Blabber, great jungler. I mean, the whole team just looks really, really solid.
And don't forget that Perks and Sven have played together on G2 before Sven left to come to TSM in North America. So this is a reuniting. So you've got to imagine that there's going to be some friendship and some synergy left over, although it was a while ago. And you think Mithy used to be Sven's laning partner, now one of the coaches with this team, who also played with Perks. It just seems like a lot of things are aligning to give this team a little head start compared to some of the other more brand new lineups.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously Miffy and Perks both coming from EU can also help with relations, stuff like that. They'll obviously know of each other and have spoke to each other before, almost guaranteed. So
they used to play on the same team.
Perks and Miffy.
Yeah, they used to be on G2 before Sven and Mithy came over to TSM in 2017. Because Perks has been on the team. Perks was on G2 since 2015.
Oh, okay. What was Miffy playing for G2?
Mithy was playing as the support. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was a long time ago then. Yeah, I had no idea. Okay.
Mithy's been a coach for like 2 or 3 years now. So.
Yeah.
He played that 1 year with TSM in 2017, I think it was, and then moved to coaching. Yeah.
So regardless, they'll obviously have known each other. And Fnatic were obviously considering signing Perks at one point, so I'm sure Miffy will be super happy to finally be able to coach Perks, and I'm sure Perks will be very, very happy to be back in mid lane. Something we know he's wanted for a long time. Wasn't too happy with being forced into the bot lane, but had to be done for a little while. But now he's back in his more comfortable role. And I honestly can't wait to see it happen, really.
Yeah, same. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. It definitely does feel like the stars are aligning for this team. You left this team out of your top two. Where would these guys fall in your power ranking?
For me, I would say they would have to come third. Honestly, I think this team, Liquid team, that's right now being shown, I think is absolutely crazy. And if this is confirmed, if this gets confirmed, I think, it's over for the other teams in the region. And that's why I've put Liquid at number one for my power ranking.
That's very interesting. It's really difficult because both of these teams seem excellent. I feel like the Cloud9 team has a couple of players who are absolutely insane, whereas I think the overall individual, average player level for the Team Liquid team is higher. And so I do still think Cloud9 come in as the favourites to the 2021 season. I would give them first in my preseason power rankings if this team comes the way. But I think with Team Liquid in second for me, it is so incredibly close.
Yeah, I just think if you look at that lineup and you look at how those players performed last season, every single one of those players had an incredible season. Santorin had a great season. Jensen had a great season.
Yeah.
Tactical and Core JJ obviously had an amazing season, being dubbed as the best bot lane in NA. Alfari, one of the best top laners in the region and in the world, in my opinion. So, I think player for player, this team is absolutely cracked out. And I think they are going to do really good.
Yeah, it is insane how well this team has come together, because they started off with an amazing base, going to Worlds in 2020 and going 3-3, but they've only made upgrades. It's absolutely incredible, and I think it really does speak to, how desperate this team is to win again, having won 4 in a row and not won at all in 2020. I think it'll be super interesting to see if they can reclaim some of their former glory.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see these guys play together, whether it will just be, let's dump a bunch of stars into one team and see what happens, or if it will be more organised. I mean, Liquid's coaching staff looks also really, really, really solid this year as well. Having those 4 coaching staff for the first team, which I think is a really good thing, and having those big names as well, like Jack and Cold and Spawn and Yoltz on the coaching staff, I think will do really, really well. And hopefully we don't just see 5 stars thrown into a team and told to fend for themselves. Hopefully we see a more organised Team Liquid, and if so, I think they'll do really, really well.
I definitely have a lot of faith in this coaching lineup. It definitely did feel like Jat was cleaning house with a number of coaches. I think they let almost 3 or 4 coaches go. And so this really is Jat's hand-picked squad of coaches to kind of take on this all-star lineup. So I've got very few doubts when it comes to the coaching lineup, and I've got even fewer doubts when it comes to the players. Like I said, I don't know if that individual star power is quite the same on Team Liquid compared to when you think about the perks of Cloud9.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely something that may be an issue, is literally just the mid gap, like perks probably being the better mid laner than Jensen. But then again, you have to take it with a pinch of salt and say, look, Santorin, probably one of the best junglers in NA as well. Can he carry Jensen, or not even carry? Can he just get him ahead against perks like so many of these teams love to do? Obviously, if you have a weak mid, then just camp that mid as a jungler. And if you have a better jungler, you'll win the game, really, 9 times out of 10. But, we'll see what happens if Santorin can perform, if everyone can perform. I still have faith in that Team Liquid will outperform this Cloud9 team.
I think we will have to wait and see, but I think both arguments are definitely are really valid. I think moving on, it feels like those 3 teams, TSM, Cloud9 and Team Liquid, are definitely considerably above the rest of the league in their prospective lineups. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. There's just a couple of things one main thing that really kind of made me a bit upset. Not upset, I was just a bit shocked and a bit disheartened, was seeing FBI's move to 100 Thieves get confirmed. And I think, this is just something that I think's a little bit upsetting, because I think, FBI last season probably had one of the best seasons for an ADC. I think he was so underrated before going into that season, and proved himself to be one of the best in NA on ADC, and then at the end of it all, moving to 100 Thieves, a team which did not have a very good season. It is not looking like they'll have a great season next season, really, except for,
So I don't know. I would argue that I'm actually quite pleased with this 100 Thieves lineup. And I think just to clarify, we're kind of moving into the middle of the pack teams now. So I'm not expecting the same as I would from our top 3 teams. But to my understanding, the way this off-season went for the Golden Guardians players is the Golden Guardian organisation was looking to cut a significant amount of their budget. And so essentially did a 4-person deal to 100 Thieves for closer, FBI, Huhi, and the mid laner. However, the mid laner might be falling through. So they might be sticking with Ryoma. But it does look like this 100 Thieves team is essentially going to be the Golden Guardians team from last year, who came forth almost knocking out TSM in playoffs, plus Someday, who's an incredible player. He's the best top laner in the league, in my opinion. And so I actually think this is going to be a really, really competitive lineup.
Yeah, looking at it from that kind of an angle, I think, they definitely do have some hope in, like you said, Someday being one of the best top laners in the league. I agree.
I essentially think it's just an upgraded version of last year's Golden Guardians lineup.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Plus Someday really, and then I think that's probably true. FBI, like I said, I think he is one of the best in the league, to be honest. And I think this 100 Thieves lineup, hopefully, they just don't have another doomed season. Like 100 Thieves just, since joining the league, seems to just have not had much luck really. But hopefully this season they'll do better. I mean, I still don't. I mean, I'm not really too hopeful that they'll maybe go top 3, top 4. But I think they'll have a better season than 100 Thieves did definitely last season at least.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that we have to kind of set our expectations for this team in the right place. And they're definitely a mid-pack team, and they might be top of the mid-pack. But with the sheer quality of the top 3 teams and looking forward to the LCS next year, I just don't necessarily see this team breaking through. But that's not the end of the world. The next kind of groups, because I think we are taking a rather extended amount of time simply to talk about 4 teams in the LCS.
Yeah.
But as we go down the list, it kind of gets less interesting for me. So let's just run through the last teams in the LCS and give our litmus tests and any real standout points. So just give me your litmus test for the new Golden Guardians lineup, which is Niles in the top. We don't have any idea who's going to be their jungler next year. Like, absolutely no clue at all, which is pretty fucking crazy. A Blaze Olive in mid, Stixay AD carry, support newbie. What's your litmus test on this team?
I think this team looks pretty decent, to be honest. I think it's obviously they've got the rookies in. Well, not the rookies except for Stixay. Who's obviously.
Yes, yeah.
In my opinion, I think Stixay is actually a pretty good ADC, honestly. He's played before, obviously, and I think there's not an awful lot to say about it, other than I think Stixay is probably the person that from this lineup people will have heard of the most. They'll know about him and they'll have seen him play before. Apart from that, the others, I'm not 100% sure on really how much they've played before, honestly.
I have to say that I'm super excited to see all of those 3 new guys come in. both Niles and Blaze Olive have been playing in academy for 1 to 2 years respectively, and they've both been arguably best in the position. So I think it's brilliant to see those guys. I think Newbie's coming over from the Oceanic region, as he has ties with Nero. Their coach is also from the Oceanic region. So I just think, this is a lineup with a lot of rookie talent, and it's great to see teams taking a chance on those players.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, it's important that these rookies do get a chance. And I think there's lots of teams that this year have brought in rookies. And I think it's something that, is going to be a more common theme. And I think it's really, really good. Like we talked about it last week, that these rookies are going to get more attention. And I think that's something that's super important, giving a wider variety of people more of a chance to play. And I think playing alongside someone like, I think especially for Newbie in this Golden Guardians team, playing alongside someone like Stixay will definitely be good for him as well.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. And I guess another team that is taking some less experienced players would be FlyQuest. They have reportedly signed a 3-player deal with Cloud9 to take Licorice from Cloud9's starting lineup, and both Palafox and Diamond from the Cloud9 Academy lineup, who have done phenomenally well in the past. And to round out that lineup, they are getting Jose Diodo from Rainbow Seven, who we saw at Worlds this year, who performed incredibly well. And also they're reported to be looking to get Johnson to start over Wild Turtle. However, that's still a little bit of a rocky rumour, as a lot of teams are still trying to get their hands on Johnson as well.
Yeah, and I think just one pick that I want to highlight out of here is the Jose Diodo pick, and I think that's super, super good for this team after losing, well, not losing, but after Santorin going to Team Liquid. I think, the next best thing, they're thinking, okay, who's a young, talented player from a different region that we can pick up, and they've gone with him. And I think, like you said, he had an amazing kind of really a explosion of his career at Worlds, or at least like the beginning of his entrance onto the scene. And, now playing in North America, more teams are going to know who he is. He'll get more recognition, and being on the starting lineup of a team like FlyQuest is tall order, but I think he will perform to his best, and I think his best is pretty damn good. So
yeah, I agree. It's going to be super interesting to see this team and how they perform, because we've essentially got 4 newer players, Johnson having admittedly played 1 year in the LCS, but I would still consider him a relative rookie. And Licorice, who's a phenomenally experienced player, and I think will be a great voice to guide this team. I think this will be one of the better middle of the pack teams, and this team has so much room to grow. So I genuinely cannot wait to see what FlyQuest do next year after having an amazing lineup and losing all of those players.
Yeah, agreed. I think, especially towards the end of the season, they kind of found their footing with that lineup, and I think it's a bit sad to see these players get let go after they probably could have had an absolutely astonishing season this season with the same lineup. Yeah. But money talks. Team Liquid bought Santorin. It's gonna happen regardless. And I think they'll still hopefully have a good season.
Yeah, no, I expect them still to do incredibly well. I'm not necessarily worried about their performance. Looking at some of the teams that we're maybe a little bit more concerned about, I think the bottom of the mid pack is actually going to be EG, who are looking at Impact, Svenskeren, Jizuke, Lost, which might be in jeopardy again due to the double lift situation on TSM, and Ignar. This is a really interesting team. I just feel like no one on this team is a carry. Everyone is a bit passive, barring Jizuke, who doesn't necessarily work well with other teammates. I just don't see the direction for this team.
Yeah, and I think they've clearly got some good players here. Like Impact's one of the. I'd say he's a pretty solid top laner. Ignar, I would also say he's a really good support. It will just be interesting to see how they all work together. Especially like you mentioned with Jizuke not being the most friendly people when it comes to working with teammates. So that's going to be something that might be a little bit of a point of clash with this team. It will be interesting to see what works out though. But yeah, like you said, these teams and going forward, I think it is going to be a little bit concerning not holding out super loads of hope for these teams. But we'll see. Never know. They could just completely pull out of the bag, especially with a team like EG.
If they do, I'll be absolutely amazed. But I don't necessarily hold out too much hope for them. However, I do hold out more hope for EG than I do our 3 remaining teams, who we're going to rattle through now, because if not, I genuinely would be too depressed. Dignitas, we're looking at Lolo, Dardoch, Demonte, Neo, and Aframu. God, this is a boring team. Once again, I think the same thoughts apply for EG. There's no carries on this team. There's no standout players. It seems like a bottom of the barrel experienced LCS roster, and I don't care.
Yeah, neither do I. I agree. I think, Dardoch's someone we've seen and has been talked about so much. I think he is a good player still, but, again, it just depends how he works with teammates like Jizuke. He's obviously known to be super toxic.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, pretty boring team. Aframu, again, still playing. It'll be interesting to see what they do. But yeah, I'm not holding out any hope for them. Like you said, pretty boring lineup, standard. Not looking for them to do anything great this season, really.
Yep. What a shame. One of the last teams that I want to talk about, or I guess have to talk about, not that I really want to talk about these last 2 teams. IMT, I actually think that although this team might not be very good, at least it's still a relatively interesting team, taking a lot of chances on some rookies, which is great to see. They're looking at Revenge, Potluck, Insanity, Raze, and Destiny. Revenge being the number 1 ranked NA solo queue player for the last couple of years. Potluck, we've already seen a little bit of. Insanity, we've already seen a little bit of. Both these guys coming from Academy. And then Raze and Destiny both coming from the Oceanic region. This is a genuine rookie lineup. I don't know how well they'll do, but at least some of these guys are finally getting their shot in the LCS.
Agreed. I think this is an actually exciting team. Like you said, you've got a full squad of rookies. And yeah, it'll be exciting to see what they do, really. No one knows too much about them. Other than, coming from the Academy, and then obviously people know about Revenge just from the ladder. But yeah, no one knows too much about them. And I think it'll be an exciting team to watch regardless of how they do.
I definitely think so. I think it would be great to see this team, and I'm just super excited to kind of see some rookie talent coming forward, and I definitely like this approach to a less expensive lineup compared to some of the other ones. And the final team, and I do think our final team, I've left them to last because I think they're going to be our 10th place team again. For God knows how many times. I don't know how anyone can be a CLG fan at this point, because goddamn, it hurts, and I don't even like the team anymore. They're looking at getting Finn over from Rogue in the LEC, getting Broxah from Team Liquid, keeping hold of Poe Belter, picking up Deftly from one of the Academy lineups, and keeping Smoothie. I feel very similarly as I did with Dignitas. It's a group of washed up players. I don't see any carries on this team, and I don't see a way. I don't see a direction. I don't see a way they're going to win, and it makes me frustrated because this isn't a super cheap team. Especially because they bought out Finn from Rogue. It just feels like it feels like bad decision making. You know, I bet Rogue were absolutely laughing when someone offered to buy Finn out of the contract with how bad the world's performance went. Like, give me your 30-second opinion before we move on to the LEC.
Yeah, I honestly agree with you. Like you said, buying out Finn, super bad decision in my opinion. I think this just shows to me other teams have capitalized on a team which didn't do well last season, and they have seen an opportunity to get rid of some of their players, get in new players, and make money on top of that. Like Liquid getting rid of Broxer for this and bringing in Santorin, it just seems like they couldn't have done anything better.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and so, God, man, if you're a CLG fan, good luck. It might be another rough year, but I think that's all of the LCS that we can talk about, because even crazier things arguably have been happening over the pond in the LEC. And so, looking over to the LEC, there have been so many changes as well, so we are really going to be rattling through these again to try and talk about all of them. I think we'll start at the top of the league and kind of work downwards into what we expect these teams to be performing. Looking at last season's winner, we look at G2 having lost Perks from the AD carry position. That looks like it's going to be their only change. And it does seem like now, with the Reckless news that he's leaving Fnatic, it's pretty confident that he might be ending up on G2. So what do you think about G2 getting Reckless instead of Perks in the AD carry?
I think it's great for Perks moving to NA. Obviously, we spoke about that before, being able to play mid lane again. Yeah. I think it's a bit sad for Fnatic that Reckless's journey has finally come to an end. But I think it's good for both Reckless and G2. I just think it might be a bit like one-sided now that next season. I think that G2, just because, you know, they've got such a stacked team, and obviously they were miles ahead of pretty much anyone last season, that this season it's just going to be even better, and, you know, they're going to do even better, and, you know, that's great for them. But it kind of puts other teams in a bit of an odd position where they can't really compete with a team like G2. I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad thing, because it promotes teams to work harder, you know, to want to beat this G2 team. But I just think that, you know, they're going to do really, really well. I mean, that's all I think. I think they're just going to absolutely smash this league, smash this season, and if not, then I think it will definitely be an upset.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've seen G2 winning so much recently. That's not going to change. If anything, it'll be so much more dominant. I think they might have a better chance internationally, but it really would depend how much Perks was bringing in the teamwork, in the shot calling, because we don't necessarily know exactly how Records will match up to him. But when it comes to LEC, this G2 lineup definitely going to be the best. And like you say, it will be interesting to see how Fnatic perform going forward. They are making more roster moves than G2. It looks like, if the rumours are to be believed, they're going to be getting Niski from Cloud9 in replacement for Nemesis. And I haven't heard any rumours as to who the new Fnatic AD carry is going to be, but I have heard that Yamato Cannon might be the new coach for Fnatic, which I think is another great move.
Agreed, and I think, you know, if, you know, I mean, there's obviously been some speculation around that ADC spot. SK, which is a team I'm sure we'll talk about later, got a completely new roster of rookies. So, you know, where's Crownshot going to go? Looks like every other spot in EU's taken. So right now, that's looking like the obvious choice for Fnatic. Yeah, but nothing is. That's just my speculation. There's no rumor.
The two Eddie carries. Yeah, the two AD carries that are currently... Yeah, the two AD carries that are currently rumoured at the moment, and both the free agents are Upset and, like you said, Crown Shot, and I think those two are the most likely. And I don't think either of those would be a bad solution for Fnatic, but it will be really interesting to see how this team kind of shapes out.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough for Fnatic to see how they respond. Obviously, they've just signed Hilasang for another year, which I think is a really good thing. I think he had a great season, performed really, really well at Worlds as well. So I'm really happy about that. And if we see Niski come, I think that will be another great addition to the Fnatic lineup. With Selfmade and Whippo staying on there, I think that will be, a pretty solid team. Just depends who we see in that ADC spot.
Yeah, and I don't know how much more speculation we can do around Fnatic, because it does feel like, compared to lots of the other teams in the LEC, they're pretty likely to come second, but I still don't think they're going to be quite close to G2, unfortunately.
Yeah, agreed. And I think G2 is just going to have an absolutely crazy season. But, we'll see how these other teams respond. It's going to obviously make these other teams work harder for those first, second and third place spots. And that's going to be really exciting to watch.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And as we look down the list, there are lots of very new teams, I think, in the LEC. We've seen so much turnover, so I don't know how much we're going to have to add to lots of these teams. But we look at teams like XL, we look at teams like Astralis, mainly bringing in new players. XL looking at Kryze, Dan, Chexcolad. Not butchered that one. Patrick and Torre, the only two names that are probably familiar to you are Patrick and Torre, who were on this team last year. The other three players coming from the ERLs. I don't necessarily think this will be an amazing team, regardless of how well the rookies perform, simply because Patrick and Torre didn't blow my socks off in the 2020 season.
Yeah, agreed. Obviously people know Patrick and Torre from the last season. Like you said, they didn't really have a standout performance. There wasn't much that could be said for them in terms of why they would be known as like standout players, really. As for the rest of them, I don't really know too much about them, but it will be interesting to see what happens with this team. I can't say I'm super excited or really have high hopes for them to do super well either. Yeah,
no, I agree. And I think the same can be said about the Misfits lineup, having Aggressivu Razork, who we saw in this team last year, the new mid laner of Vethio, Kobe again returning, and Vander rumoured to be coming back into the LEC this year. We definitely got some good players. We look at some of the more experienced talent in Razork, Kobe and Vander. It'll be interesting to see how the top and mid players from the ERLs kind of fit into this new Misfits team.
Yeah, agreed. Like you said, Vander rumoured to come back. I think that would probably be a good thing for this team. That's the only thing that I can really see that's great for this team that they're going to do. Other than the coaching staff changes, I don't even really know who either of the coaches that they're rumoured to bring in are. But I think with regardless of whoever it is, a coaching change is always kind of a good thing for a team. So that'll be good. Plus Vander, who I think is a really pretty good support. So you never know, it could turn this team around. They could be a top 3 competitor for the next season. Still kind of unlikely with the other teams that we see in the LEC, but good things to come for the Misfits, hopefully.
Yeah, I definitely hope that we could see an improvement from this team. A team that are definitely looking to improve on their pretty piss poor performance from the 2020 season is Origin, who have, changed so much. They've even done away with the name Origin. They've been owned by Astralis for a while now. They're now taking on the name of Astralis and getting rid of all of their players apart from Nuke Duck in the mid lane. So it's a total rebuild around this guy. And they're bringing in players, unsurprisingly, as if you've heard the last two teams we've talked about, from the ERL. So we're looking at a new Astralis team of White Knight, Zanzara, Nuke Duck, Jeskla and Promiscu. And I think this team could be quite good. These are some of the best ERL players that we've seen for a while now. And a couple of them have played together before. We think Nuke Duck is a relatively stable player. So I think this could be a decent middle of the pack team, but I don't necessarily see a massive ceiling for this team, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. There's not a huge ceiling for this team. I think Nuke Duck's a pretty capable player. And, the fact that they've decided to build a team around him surely says something about him. And, it will be interesting to see if Nuke Duck... I think it will be clear to see and interesting to see whether Nuke Duck has had any influence in which players they decided to pick up. I'm pretty sure that he probably will have, considering he's the only one that's left from this lineup from last year. So hopefully that kind of means that they'll have more synergy within the team. Hopefully he knows some of them already, and they won't do too bad. And like you said, taking on the name of Astralis, I like that. It's just something that I like. I like that. So hopefully we see them perform and Nuke Duck carrying on to play decently, and hopefully the rest of the team can support him.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be super interesting to watch this lineup. A lineup that I am significantly more excited for the next year in LEC is the Rogue lineup, actually. I think this team is going to absolutely slap, right? Because hear me out. We got rid of Finn, who was easily the weakest player on the Rogue lineup. We got an Odoamne, who I actually highly rate as an LEC top laner. I think he'll be top 2, top 3. And we've got Trimby to go along Hansama, who's one of the best ERL's support players, keeping Inspired, Larson and Hansama together, who have worked really well together, having an amazing summer and making it to Worlds. I think we could see this team possibly even make it to 3rd place, over 4th place from last year. Yeah,
I agree. I think, they've got a super impressive team, like you said. Finn probably being the weakest link on this team, and like you said, Odoamne actually being a really good top laner. Alongside that team, Hansama, one of my personal favorite ADCs in this in the LEC, and also Larson, probably one of my favorite mid laners as well. So this team, like you said, looking really exciting, and definitely I think able to take that 3rd place spot. There's not really a team I would even say would take that 3rd place spot over them, really.
Yeah, I agree. It's great to see, and I'm really excited to see them continue to build on the success that they had last year for the first time. Another team that had a lot of success at the end of the year was Schalke with their almost miracle run, and it seems like this team might be getting better or different. I guess it depends. They're rumoured to be getting Broken Blade, actually, from TSM in the top lane to replace Odoamne as he moves over to Rogue, keeping Gilius, Abadage, Neon, and getting Limit, who's worked alongside Neon before on one of the previous teams they've played on. Give me your quick 30 seconds thoughts on this team that's basically staying the same.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be probably a rerun of last season. I'm not super hopeful or too excited about it. Again, like I've said I think we've probably said that for half of the teams that are in here, really. But they'll serve their purpose in the league, like they've always really done, and hopefully they do well. Not much else to say.
Yep, I think it's just going to be very similar. I think both of the, taking in Broken Blade and Limit is a side grade for both of the previous players. And so it will really come down to whether or not this team can continue to capitalise on the magic they are experiencing at the end of last season. If they want to have any hope of breaking into the top echelons with GC Fnatic and Rogue.
Yeah.
The Mad Lions had a really disappointing time at Worlds this year. And it does seem like they've listened to a lot of the feedback and changed out what I would consider to be the two weakest players from this team, replacing their top and jungle to bring in Armut and Elioya, both from the ERLs. Armut, the one I've heard more about, who's had some massive success. And those two will be taking up the positions alongside Humanoid, Kazi and Kaiser. Do you think this team will be able to repeat some of the success that they had in 2020? Or do you think that they might struggle against some of the other teams in 2021?
I think that this team, again, is super underrated in my opinion. I think that Armut is actually a really, really good top laner. I mean, we saw him play recently, obviously, at Worlds, being from a wildcard region, probably the best top laner from any wildcard region. I think he played really, really well, and people started to kind of notice him as those play-ins went on. So I think, hopefully they'll be able to run it back this season, maybe even do better with this team. And I do have hope for them. I think Humanoid's still a really good mid laner. Obviously, Kazi, Kaiser are the EU's beloved bot lane. So we'll see how they do. And I do have hope for them.
Yep, it will be super interesting to see how that goes. Coming down to the final two teams, I don't really have much to say. SK Gaming picking up 4 players from the ERLs, Genax, Tinks, Blue and Jezu, pairing those 4 players alongside Treats, who we saw on TSM Academy and on the TSM main lineup in 2020. I don't have a lot to say about this team. I don't expect them to be world beaters unless somehow everything clicks. What I will say is they had the best roster reveal video I've seen so far. If you haven't seen it, go and check out the SK Gaming Twitter. It's great. It's humorous, and it makes me hopeful for at least the content that this team will be putting out around this new lineup.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, obviously that was released literally earlier today. And I think this team of rookies, it's actually something I'm quite excited for. I always love it when these big teams do bring in the rookies alongside like maybe 1 or 2 previous players. So yeah, like you said, though, I don't expect them to do anything crazy, but it will be interesting to see these players grow. And obviously then next season, see how they do, see what happens, stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. And the final team on our list is Vitality, who look to be keeping 4 of the same players. They're looking to be keeping their jungle, mid and bot combo of Skeens, Melitsla, Comp and Labrov, and bringing in a new top laner to replace... God, who was their top laner before? Cavachard, I think. And they're bringing in Sazgina, who I don't know anything about, if I'm honest, and I expect this team to be very similar to how they were doing last year, which is not great. And that's all I have to say about them, unfortunately, as the last team on our list on a Thursday evening.
Yeah, so like you said, obviously only that one change with Vitality. In the top lane, like you said, I'm also not super excited about this team's. It's just like the top teams during the off season are always the ones which are going to be the most exciting, because they're the teams which have all the money and they can buy the big players and do the big things, which is it's like a, I don't know, it depends how you look at it really, but I think that this off season has been pretty good, pretty exciting, with loads of EU and NA imports. So I'm excited to see what really goes down during this season. I think we've made some predictions already, and we can see whether those really hold out. I've got no clue. It could go with the disparity between the teams. It seems pretty close within regions, except for with EU, G2's just going to dominate, and that's pretty much a fact. Like, hopefully, anyway, unless something terrible happens.
Yeah, I think it has been a genuinely crazy off-season. I think that the teams have really shaken up. We've seen so many new teams, so many upgrades, so many fresh faces coming into both the LEC and the LCS for the first time. So I think this is a great time to be a fan of the league. And yeah, it's just been mental. It really has. I've been almost glued to Twitter trying to follow all of the rosters coming out and constantly changing.
Yeah, me too. And I think there's been so many controversies already that, what could happen still is, we'll obviously do an episode next week, and I'm sure we'll have some change. Well, if there has been massive changes, we'll definitely do an episode. Depending on what happens, but yeah, I still think that we could see some crazy things go down. You never know. And I don't know if you saw, but T1 actually released another quick update message, and they said that they will they are going to address the LS issue apparently soon. So hopefully,
yeah. So I guess let's just finish out the episode by talking about this. And obviously, just remember, this is a sensitive topic for a lot of the people involved. But to my understanding, it's been a pretty crazy roller coaster with everything that's been going on with T1. Are you able to just start by breaking it down, and I'll kind of fill in any gaps?
Sure. So in the beginning, there was a leak from Effort's stream, who was playing on T1 at the time, still is, but who is on T1. There was a leak from his Discord where there was a chat between himself and the owner of T1, and also LS, who is a caster in Korea, and loads of people, I'm sure you'll know who he is, we've talked about him loads of times. Caster in Korea, and Polt, who was a StarCraft 2 pro, now confirmed to be the head coach for T1. Basically welcoming these two as the new coaching staff for T1. And this got leaked, like I said, on Effort's stream through his Discord, and then a couple of days or weeks later, T1 announced that they would be taking on Polt and some others as their coaching staff, but there was no mention of LS. And this is where my knowledge of the situation kind of gets a bit rocky, because I know LS was off Twitter for a while and didn't really talk about it or address it or anything. And I know T1 kind of began to address the issues, but they didn't really directly ever address the main issue, which was on people's minds of, well, what happened with the LS deal? Did it fall through? And I'm sure you probably know more about this than me now, because I haven't seen anything really in a few weeks.
So what's happened since that point is that how do I break this down in the most easy way? To put it simply, Whippo went on to the podcast. I think it was his podcast. I think it was Thorin's podcast, the one that he does with I Will Dominate.
Yeah,
one of those ones. And essentially did what most of the community was doing, which was pretty hard flaming T1, except he kind of was a little bit unfair on a lot of the members involved. And he's since apologised for that. But it has caused T1 to come out and say, we're sorry that we didn't address it. We apologise for the leak. This is what happened. And they have said that they are going to address exactly what has was and is going to happen going forward with LS. So hopefully, hopefully that will get to a point where lots of these things can get sorted out. But we don't quite know. I think we're at the cusp of getting this whole really unfortunate situation resolved.
Yeah, I agree. And I think finally, once this whole thing is resolved, hopefully, there's no more hate. Well, I think right now there's just such like a war going on really between it's hard to word this without maybe coming across as offensive. With there's and I know Bwippo also was mentioning this in his tweets earlier. There's certain Korean fans which are extremely like hateful and racist towards the Eastern teams, and obviously, hopefully, once this whole situation's resolved, people are going to stop acting like this. Hopefully, it's just a super unfortunate situation, like we've talked about, and hopefully it does get resolved. T1 will bring out a statement soon, they said, which is good.
Yeah, it's never good when there's this much of a rift in the league community, and like you say, I just hope that we get all the information, that everyone's done justice, and that we can see some positive things coming out in the future.
Yeah, and hopefully, LS will also make a statement soon, because I don't think he's been on his socials for quite a long time now.
No, he's been taking some time off.
Yeah, which is definitely very necessary, and I'm glad that he's chosen to do that now, so that once this whole thing is resolved and he's found his place wherever that may be, he can come back and do his job amazingly, like he's always done, really, in my opinion.
Yep. It'll be good to see. And I think that probably does it for this episode. We will have an episode either next week or the week after. Check out our Twitters and we'll keep you updated. On next week's episode, we're going to be talking and breaking down our experiences of the pre-season and giving any more LEC, LCS roster updates as they come through if anything crazy happens.
Indeed.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for listening. It genuinely has been a truly crazy off-season period. So, stay glued to Twitter because there's still so many things to get confirmed and some spots that we have no idea what could be happening. And we will speak to you all in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah.